Black Friday might be an American phenomenon dating back to the 50s, but South Africans have adopted it with gusto. The annual bargain hunt has retailers slashing prices and getting shoppers in knots over which are the best deals. Unfortunately, on this chaotic and exciting day, criminals also look for opportunities. Brian Pinnock, a cybersecurity specialist from Mimecast, is joining us now in the studio in Cape Town with tips for shopping safely online. Brian, good morning and thank you very much for your time. Of course, there's a lot of Black Friday shopping that happens online. What are the do's and don'ts?
Well, I think the do's almost are to start the shopping frenzy almost now. Unfortunately, what's happened, there was great excitement in our office this morning where one of the large retailers' websites has actually crashed. So, Black Friday has already started. It's only Wednesday and, we're a couple of days away from the main event and Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But already the shopping frenzy started. I think one of the things that you should do is try and avoid or try and use a credit card as opposed to a debit card. That always helps. It gives you a much higher level of protection. It's also important to try and surf from networks that are safe. For example, your work network, certainly don't surf from networks like free Wi-Fi networks at a place like airports and stations and things like that. I think from the don'ts perspective, there's a very, very long list of don'ts. Really, the thing to avoid is to click on anything. Don't click on pop-up adverts. Certainly don't click on links in email. Mimecast is a cybersecurity company that focuses on email protection, and we see a huge number of threats coming through on email. We protect primarily businesses, but this is certainly not just limited to businesses. We see a huge number of threats coming through to consumers as well, and unfortunately consumers don't have that same level of protection that most businesses do.
And on your mobile devices, the behavior should be the same?
Yes, absolutely. I think mobile devices are also quite dangerous in a sense because we tend to trust them a huge amount. And unfortunately, cyber criminals have got more and more sophisticated. A lot of people's view of what constitute good cybersecurity is kind of rooted in the cybersecurity of the 1990s, where you just needed a fairly good antivirus and a firewall of some kind, and you were pretty well protected. Unfortunately, that's not the case today. Cyber criminals have got very, very much more sophisticated, and we see large number of cases of fraud, specifically involving mobile devices, malware getting onto mobile devices. It's more prevalent on the Android brand than it is on the Apple brand, but it's not to say that any mobile phone is actually immune to sort of cyber attacks.
Now, Brian, very few of us have got well-trained eyes and understand the dangers of what happens online in terms of cybersecurity. I mean, there are all these pop-up ads that I'm getting on my PC, on my phone, let alone SMSs. I mean, how can you tell what's legit and what's not?
I think the short answer to that is that you can't. So what these cyber criminals are doing is they're actually working on all of the hard work that brands and companies who own those brands have been doing over many years, is to hardwire you into trusting those brands. So what you do is you've built up this trust over years and years, whatever it is about that brand, maybe it's quality, maybe it's low cost, whatever it is, you kind of have all these shortcuts built into your brain about trusting something. And what the cyber criminals do is they use all of that hard wiring against you. So the short answer is you should always try and be as suspicious as possible. What these guys do is they use our own psychology against us. There's quite a complicated set of things they do, but it can actually be distilled down into two things. Ultimately, they play on your greed or they play on your fear. And Black Friday is the perfect example of that. If you look at a typical site, what happens is an offer comes through in a pop-up ad, or it comes through on your email, and it says, we're selling 100 TVs at a ridiculously low price, and we've already sold 98 of them. So you've got this greed aspect where you want to get that cheap TV, flat screen TV, whatever it might be, but you've also got the fear of missing out. You're just about to miss out, so you need to act quickly. And really what happens is all of our common sense just goes out the window. So it's very, very difficult to tell, and that's why it's important to, if you're a business, to actually train your end users to look out for these kinds of things. But as consumers, I know that we sort of hardwired to try and trust these brands, but we really mustn't. So you should try and avoid clicking on anything that just pops up, and always kind of just take a pause and just see if something's too good to be true. It probably is.
Thank you very much. Brian Pinnock, Mimecast's cyber security specialist.